Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a good day today. We're just working away here. I'm working on this one. Gonna try to get this one finished up today. And if you were here the other day, you saw me working on this one. This one is ready for to be quilted. Kind of a crazy, wild one, but I have to tell you, I auditioned a number of plain fabrics for the background around the blocks inside the blue line, and it just all looked blah. And so I sat back and I thought, what would Kaif do? He'd make it more wild. I mean, if you look at a lot of his patterns, you can't really see the blocks till you look closely. The fabrics just all blend, and that's what I tried to do here, and I really kind of like it. It's not something I normally would do, but I think it looks kind of cool. So it's going to get quilted, I hope, this weekend. And of course, there's our floating blocks that we worked on a week or two ago. And this is the one I'm working on today. I think I've got almost 4 blocks left to do is all. I got a third of that block done. So, and I've got this one put together. I'm just going to stitch the foundation down to the fabric. We're in California. On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Laura does a live, and she does hers from Virginia. So we're on opposite coasts. If you're new here, we manufacture these leave-in foundations. They're the same process. You use them the same way you would do paper, except you're going to just leave these in. You can't tell they're in your quilt. But if you can follow the numbers and sew on the line, you can make these beautiful blocks very easily. This is our product. You can see it's very, very sheer. It's very strong. It is a non-woven, so there's no bias. So it will not stretch. It will not allow your blocks to stretch out of shape. And it's so lightweight you won't know it's there. You use a regular stitch length because you're leaving it in. They come pre-printed. You can buy pre-shrunk blank foundation. That is available on our website. And it's very important when I say pre-shrunk because as with all interfacings, they shrink a lot and more in one direction than the other. So we shrink ours. They're not going to shrink anymore. I do think it's time for a new blade. So this block that I'm working on today is called Empty Blocks. And it's really sort of, let's see, this is medium and light. This one is gonna go right there. Let me grab a pen. Yep. This is called Empty Blocks, and it's 3 blocks make up a full empty block, if that makes sense. You see, this is 1 block, this is 1 block, and this is a 3rd one. And we sew those together to make it look like it's an empty box. Like you're looking through, like 3 walls are clear and 3 walls are solid. And it ends up making a hexagon. So we have a hexagon here for our background and a half one here for the background. So I've got this all sewn together, everything's sewn together except this turquoise block that I'm making right now. So we're going to try to get this one done and sewn together so I can show you how easy it is to do the dreaded Y seam. I put piece 1 and 2 together. They're identically shaped, sized, and all that. And then I set the foundation on top. And you want about 1/4 of an inch of fabric to go past the line. This is space 1. This is space 2. You want about 1/4 of an inch of fabric to go past the line. You're setting your seam allowance. And you want to make sure you've got at least 1/4 inch past the other 2 lines on space 1. And then we're just going to put our needle down right there at the end of this line between 1 and 2 and stitch across. And all of our patterns have step-by-step instructions, mostly photos. And of course, you can always come back to the videos on our YouTube channel and watch how to do it. So that was stitching with step 1. You're going to press it, and I really like to set the seams first, so when you open this up, you have less of a ridge. The stitching, when you set your stitches, what you're doing is you're setting them down into the fibers of your fabrics. So you can barely feel that seam right there. Okay, now step number 3. Step 2 was to press. Step 3 is to trim to get ready to add the next piece. This is space 3 here, and this is where we're going to sew it on. So we're going to put our straight edge along that seam line and fold the foundation back. You don't ever want to cut your foundation. And then use your add 1/4 ruler. It just hooks on your straight edge, and you trim that little extra off. So there's your 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now we'll turn it over. And I have my pieces all stacked up over here. If I could grab a piece. Okay, and then we're just going to put right sides together like that. And this point here goes a little further, so I kind of shift this whole piece a little bit to the left. And then we turn it over and stitch on the line. You want to put your needle down right there at that point. And I don't back stitch because I'm going to have another seam. See this, whoops, let me cut my thread first. Raining in Tennessee, huh? And I hear it's really hot up north. Okay, so this seam, I don't back stitch because I'm going to have this seam going across it, so that will hold it. And if you go too far, when you pull this back to use your add a quarter, if you go too far, and especially if you go too far and you back stitch it, I have never ripped this, the foundation, but it could, but it'll also distort it. So it's just better if you just try to start and stop on the end. But the main thing is don't back stitch it. If you go too far and you don't back stitch it, it's real easy to pull that extra seam out, so it won't distort your foundation. Okay, we set our stitches. We're going to open it up and press it nice and flat. Pressing is really important. I cannot overstress it. You want everything to be pressed nice and crisp because you are going to be sewing across this. If your seam isn't good and flat and then you sew across it, it's never going to be good and flat. So pressing is really, really important. And we do sell a roller that works really well. But in my workshops, I tell my students an iron or this little roller. And the reason this roller, hey, in my previous life, I was a contractor. I did wallpaper, installed wallpaper. So I had a lot of the wallpaper rulers, and I mean rollers. I had a lot of different kinds. I had plastic, I had wooden, I had a metal one. So of course, when I got into quilting, I thought, oh, that's perfect. Well, it doesn't do such a great job. You know, if you're going to spend the time and the money on the fabric doing these projects, I really like to see you do it the best of your ability. And part of that is really good flat seams. This roller works really well, and the reason it works is it's slightly curved. So in the middle, you get better pressure. When it's flat across the roller, you don't get, the pressure's not, how do I want to say it? The pressure's even all the way across, and you're going over bumps, so it's not getting your seam as flat as it could be. This one works really, really well. So what I usually do, in fact, what I'm going to start doing in all my workshops is I'll be taking the small steam irons and for all my students in a small pressing mat, and so that there's no excuse for not pressing your seams properly. Because if you try, you will see it does make a difference. Okay, let's put right sides together here. I trim this down to my 1/4 inch. And then we'll just turn it over. This block is just the right size. I can grip it with my both hands and get it to the sewing machine without pinning it. That doesn't happen very often, especially when you have a lot of arthritis in your fingers. Remember, I won't be on Saturday. I'm taking the holiday off. And I hope you're all going to have a great, safe, and happy 4th of July. Celebrate our country's independence. 250 years, wow. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 done. Number 5 is next. So we're gonna put that along the seam line and fold this back. Don't forget to add a quarter ruler. It's the only specialty tool you need to make any of our projects. Now, I am going to recommend, but it is not necessary. In the pattern, there will be a couple of templates, but for cutting these 2 large pieces, well, 6 per block, I recommend getting a 60-degree triangle ruler. And on this one, you cut your fabric strip. And since for each color you're only going to need 2 triangles, it's a 4.5-inch strip by, I don't know, 9 inches, maybe a little bit more than that. What am we? We're cutting them 4.5 by 11, and you just want to line the 4.5-inch line up with the bottom of the fabric or the strip and cut. And there you have it. You're ready to go. Pretty easy. There will be templates in the pattern. So, oh, and I wanted to show you. Okay, we cut for number 5. So to save myself some time, I'm going to turn it around. I guess, yeah, and number 6. This is number 6. We can cut both of these on the same trip to the cutting mat. Just saves a little time. You can only do that when the next piece you're adding, which is number 5 over here, isn't going to interfere or change anything about when you add piece number 6. I could also do that for 3 and 4. But most blocks you can't do that because you're building, you know, piece by piece. You're building off of the previous piece, and it won't work that you can pre-cut. So, and this one's a little longer, so I'm going to put a pin here and then turn it over, and I'm going to stitch on that line. I'll pull my pin out. Did you watch the soccer game last night? It was pretty exciting. And then I'm just going to stitch the other one on while I'm here. Just saves a little time. Now, on this quilt, I have a light, medium, and dark gray. There's not a big difference in the colors, but I wanted just a little something to help with the 3-dimensional look. But on the smaller one I showed you that I did in the Kaffe fabrics, the blocks, these outside edges for every block, they're all the same color, so it's really easy to chain piece it. And you'll notice when there's no more lines going across here, this is where we're going to sew the blocks together. But when there's no more lines here that are going to cross this seam line, I run it all the way out to the edge And most all of our patterns, some of the old ones haven't been updated yet. We're working on that. They'll all be printed so the stitching line goes all the way out to the broken line when you're not going to have any more seams crossing it to help hold it in. And so I won't be on, Laura will not be on tomorrow, and I won't be on Saturday. And of course, we don't do shows on Sunday. So Laura will be back on Monday, and I'll be back on Tuesday with a whole new project. Haven't quite decided which one of my new ones. Okay, once this is, whoops, you know what I forgot to do is I forgot to run a line of stitching. See this long edge here is not hooked to the fabric. And I prefer to have it hooked for when I go to sew the blocks together. That way I know my block is not going to get distorted in any way. And it's just a real, I don't change my stitch length. I call it basting, but I just keep my regular stitch length. The only thing you want to do is make sure it's laying nice and flat so you don't distort it. Thank you so much for joining me today. Okay, now we can trim around. You trim around the outside edge 1/4 inch from the solid line. The dotted line is usually at 1/4 inch, but I really do need to get a new blade in here. Yes, I do. The only reason the dotted line is printed on here is because I want to make sure you get your fabric out that far so you have enough fabric in your seam allowance. But if you trim every one 1/4 inch with your ruler, when you go to put these blocks together, your seam allowances should all be the same width. So if your edges match, 99% of the time, your seam lines are going to match. So now, let's put this up here, make sure we've got it. It's going to go like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one, fold it over. Whoops, let's get that pin out of there. And then we have our right sides together. So I'm going to put a pin right at that point and make sure it comes out at the point on the other side. Put it in here and make sure it comes out over here. And then I'm going to go down to the other end. And I don't have any seams to match up along this seam line. And then I put a pin in this point here and make sure it comes out at the point on the underneath block. Perfect. Okay. And then I'm going to, this is very important, I'm going to put my needle down right at that point. pin out. And then I take a couple stitches and I back stitch. Don't want to go past the end of the line. Just stitch on down. And I keep my pin in there. I'm gradually pulling it out. And I can't control my machine very well to just do one stitch, so I do it manually. Okay, then back stitch, just enough to hold it. Okay, so we have that seam sewn together. And now we're going to get the third one to make up the cube. And it's going to go like that. You want your two lights to be, and then your two mediums, like that. You can see it looks like this is one wall, and this is the top, and this is the other wall. So this is how it's going to go. So you want to take this third part and flip it over. You can either flip it over this way, or you can flip it over this way. And we're going to match those points again. So I'm going to put my pin in right there. And then I'm going to put it in the point on the underneath side, just like that. And get those together nicely. And you should be able to see that the corners of your two fabrics match up. And you want to pull this piece here, and the seam allowance away. See how I have that pinned? Just like that. And it's like that on the back side. That's perfect. Now we're going to go down here to the other end. And we're going to match those points like we did before. Perfect. And now we're going to stitch. So you want to put your needle down right at that point. I can see my pin right there. Perfect. And then I'm going to take 1, 2, and I'm going to back up 1. And again, we're going to go just to the end of the line. Don't want to stitch past it. And clip my threads. If you watch me very much, you know I have a thing about threads. Okay. So now this is the piece we're adding. We're going to pivot it so we can bring it over and match this side. And again, at the center, you can see the corners of the two fabrics, they match up. So it's a pretty good indication that your points are already matched. We'll put a pin right in there, Oh, look at that. It came out perfect on the other side. And again, hold your fabrics together. Make sure this piece is pulled away and all the seam allowances are pulled away. You don't want to stitch your seam allowances down. And bring it out to the end, and we'll see if we can't match those two ends up. Just like, I'm having trouble today. Put the pin in the front and bring it out right there. And that all fits nicely. So then, holding the fabric and the seam allowances away from where you're going to stitch, you just want to put your needle down right there at that point. Take your pin out. Okay, and there we have our inset seam. Perfect. So we'll take it over to the ironing mat, and we're going to press our seams in one direction. I'm pressing them all away from me as I turn it. So they go in, like you have them swirled, and that makes the center, this center section pop open, so it lays very flat. See, there's your center. It just popped open because I have my seams going like this. And we'll give this a good press, and this block is done. And of course, if your center was off or something, you'd want to correct it right now. And I don't trim the points until after I have sewn everything together. And then I just swivel it. Okay, and that's how you do the inset seams for the whole thing when you're joining all these blocks together. Where's my pin? Like for this one, I would sew it here first and then pivot it and sew it here. And then I have a half hexagon to sew in here, same way, start on one side, pivot, sew up to here, pivot, making sure you pull your seam allowances away from where you're stitching. That way it doesn't get bulky in the middle, and you tend not to get a pucker if you keep your seam allowances and the other fabrics, everything pulled away from where you're starting your stitching. So let's do one more here. So you have 2 light triangles, 2 light, 2 mediums, and 2 darks. So you're going to lay these out. So you have you have your dark, you put a medium with 1 and a light with 1. That leaves you a medium and a light. So there's your fabrics for your 3 blocks. And let's see, this one, the light and the medium, that's these two, get the darkest frame. So I just like to do this. There's a guide. I have a color guide, and it is included in the pattern. And the blocks will be marked. Right now it just says empty blocks 6-inch. It'll say empty blocks part A, and there will be indications in the number where the numbered spaces are as to which fabric goes in there. When I can, that makes it much simpler. If you're doing a large one, but you're doing it like this one, where all your outer pieces, all of these that go around, they're all the same color on all 3 blocks. So that makes it real simple. If you're doing a large one like that, you can just ignore the indications on the foundation as to which color. The instructions all tell you all that. So let's do this. And it doesn't matter which piece goes in space 1, because these are symmetrical. Okay, so I have it wrong side facing up. Put the foundation on top. When it's like this, you want to be able to read the printing on the foundation. It says stitch with this side facing up, fabric underneath. You want to have about 1/4 inch of fabric going past the line between space 1 and space 2. You also want to make sure you have at least 1/4 inch going past the other 2 lines of space 1. So you can put a pin back over here and then turn it over so the right side of your fabric is facing up. Put fabric piece number 2 on top, and they're the same size, so just cover piece 1 with piece 2 and you'll know you've got it in the right place. And then we're just going to turn it over, and we're going to sew on that line between 1 and 2. Hi, Denise. I need to find some good, the good trimmers. I got a cheapy set like this, but they don't work very well. And this is like the 3rd pair. I bought a more expensive pair. It didn't work very well. And I don't know how to adjust them to make them work better for just snipping threads. But I have a very sore arthritic finger. And when I use these, of course, my tendency is to put my finger in there, and it gets stuck and it hurts. So I'll keep looking. And right before I came on here, got a fabric delivery, and I can't even remember what it is that I ordered. So this is going to be like Christmas when I get done here. Okay, so we're going to trim for both 3 and 4. This happens to be 4. But remember, I showed you could do that. On this particular block. So there's 3, and I already pulled the right frame color for this one. Put right sides together. And then I'm going to add the other side before I take this to the ironing board. I broke out the new wool mat. I only have a 4-foot table up, and the mat is 5 feet, so I'm going to have to do a little rearranging and get a 6-foot table put up. But I love the mat, and it's typical wool. It smells like the barnyard when you put steam on it. Okay, now we're going to trim. This gets, it's very repetitious. So you'll either get very good or very bored. I have just enough other things to do in between that it keeps me interested when I do have time to sit down and sew. I rarely have time to sew other than when I'm doing this. Hello. But I love you get very quickly get the 3-dimensional look to this. And it just always amazes me how these flat fabrics can be sewn together to look like it's 3-dimensional instead of 2. I find it fascinating. Very much like I think the floating blocks, that one is the first one I did, and it just amazes me. When you look up close, you can see it's just flat, but when you stand back and look, you swear it's 3-dimensional, that those blocks are just floating out there. That that pattern is available. It's on the website, and I think the kits are also available. Yeah, the Hunter Star goes together quickly. I didn't check in on this morning's show, see how it's going, how far along she is. Okay, this time I'm not going to forget. We're going to zip a line of stitching down the side. I've been contemplating a new pattern using this block with, because this same block, if you just made it a solid color for the whole, this whole thing, if you just made it a solid color and you did the three together, you would be making a tumbling blocks quilt. And I think there's got to be a way of making something really interesting with some of your blocks, your tumbling blocks, looking like they're empty cubes and some looking like they're solid. So I'm going to have to play around with that. We'll do one more here so you can, whoa, so you can see how we do the set-in seams again. These are so, I don't know why. I guess because it's printed and there's no, you don't have to go in and mark your 1/4 inch spot. And it's just on here. It just makes it super easy. Okay, this is the medium and the light. I gotta look at my chart. Medium and light goes across the bottom. So that's where it goes. Or it could be the top of the block below it. It's just, this just is so much fun. It's so amazing. The things you can do. The pattern does have, where'd it go? The pattern does have a blank chart in it like this, so you can play with it. Color it however you want, because there are so many different ways you could do this. If you were just doing all of your blocks with the same 3 colors, you could really have it freaky, like a Escher design, where your eyes would just play all kinds of tricks on you for where is the block really. Oh, she's got 1 full block and 2 or 3 more parts. Don't forget that if you decide you want to make one of our designs, if I haven't done a video, check on our YouTube, and I'm not sure if they're listed also on our instruction page on our website. I think there might be a link. I haven't looked in a long time, to tell you the truth. The kids manage the website, so this technically challenged old lady doesn't lose my lose my mind over it. But check back here for a video of the pattern you want to do. And if you don't see it, send us a message. We love to do it. Eventually, the plan is to eventually have a video for every pattern and every block that we make. But we have, I believe we have over 400 items, so it's going to take a little while. But we're plugging away at it. So, okay, now we're going to do the dark and the light. So that gets the medium border. Yeah, okay, that making sense. So this one should be, if I get a chance to sew it all, I don't think I will this afternoon, but this one will definitely be done before I come back on Tuesday. Okay, so now you can do this either way. You can set piece number 1 alone and line this up, or since they're going to match perfectly, put them both together and set your 1/4 inch seam allowance. Put a pin over here so we don't sew over it. And take it to the machine and let's stitch down. Take my pin out. Okay, and then we're going to trim for pieces 3 and 4. And you know, if you follow me at all, you know I normally stack my pieces in order over here on the bed of my machine. Oh my goodness, I am covered in threads. Okay, so then we'll put this one here like this. Turn it over and stitch on that line. And while I'm here, I'll just sew the piece number 4 on. You know, I think I've complained about a couple of things on my machine here. Mostly it's the bobbin. My tension looks pretty good here. I don't know if you can see that. Um, but I really got this machine. Um, I like the long arm on it for quilting small projects. But I got it mainly, I do art quilts in my spare time. I'll have to share some of them with you guys. Um, I do a ton of thread painting. So, and I started doing it on my, I burned up 2 motherboards in my FOF, and it wasn't the FOF's fault, that's for sure. I would stitch all day, like 6 or 8 hours a day, running that thing pretty hard, doing thread painting on the art quilts. And I'm thinking if I can find somebody who can replace the motherboard again, I'm gonna bring it out of retirement. But anyway, I bought this machine because it's easy to drop the feed dogs, and I did not want a another computerized machine, and I guess I didn't want to run into those kind of problems that I did with my FOF was a real warrior. But anyway, that's what I got this for, and I thought I love to piece on my vintage machines. There's just something so satisfying about them. But my husband took an old desk, a real heavy desk that we had, and he cut it out here and made a box that this fit in, and then cut the plastic filler. And it is so convenient because it's deep. It's very wide, and it's so convenient. It's got room for my cutting mat here. Sometimes I pull the top drawer out and I have a traveling pressing mat that I'll put there. And it's just very convenient. So I've been doing most of my piecing the last year or two on this machine, and my poor vintage machines only get used when we travel. And I did actually manage to be able to take this machine out of here and put the my featherweight in here, and we made another filler piece to fill this in. But I don't know why I don't use it that much. So now I'm thinking I'm going to set my vintage machine up, put a table that backs up to this, same height, and be able to use either one. Because I do like to do, like a lot of my table toppers or something, it's just as easy to do it on this because I have the big table space, the big throat, as it is to put it on the long arm. And of course it depends on how I'm going to quilt it. If I'm just going to do an edge-to-edge design, I'll put it on the long arm. But if I'm going to do any kind of custom quilting, I'll do it on this if it's a small project. But you know, I taught myself doing the thread painting. The way I learned to do that is by moving the fabric, the needle stationary, and moving the fabric. So it's been, when we got the long arm, I thought I could do my art quilts on there, but I just don't feel as comfortable. I know that I probably would if I practiced a lot. But I've got years and years, of actually doing the thread painting by moving the fabric. So that's what my head is used to. And there again, it's hard. At my age, it's hard to think. I mean, I still want to, obviously, always want to be learning. But I want to, I want to, I don't want to spend so much time practicing. I want to do. So, and I've got so many quilts that need to go on the long arm. Now, Laura bought a long arm that right now it's set up as a sit down. And I used it, not this last trip, but the trip before last. I did use it, played around with it. And I could do some art quilts on that one. I'll try to remember next Tuesday to bring a couple of my art quilts in here to share. Okay, now we're going to trim around the outside edge. And I still, as you can see, I still haven't got myself a good ruler for trimming. I really like the size of this one. I marked the 1/2 inch line and the 1/4 inch line on it, and it's wearing away. But I wish that I could see the lines better. Yeah, it's hard to see them. But I love the size of this. So that came from some friends of ours as a sample. But I like this size because when I line it up, I like to keep my last 2 fingers over here, ring finger and pinky, on the table to keep it from pushing like that when I cut. And my 9.5 inch ruler is way too big to secure like that. So I'll keep looking. And I will put a new blade on here. Okay, all done. So now this one goes like that. This is going to be a nice sized quilt. Ouch. I think we're getting there. Yes. Okay, so now I have the dark and the dark. I mean the dark and the medium, and that gets the lightest frame. Okay. this on top, oops, so I can read the printing. Center that a little bit better. I have quite a collection of vintage machines, and I really should. I'm not using them like I used to. Well, I don't have them all set up like I used to. And I'm trying to think what year it was, what model it is. All my vintage machines, except for one, are Singers. I have, I guess you could call I have a Kenmore my father bought me in 1965, maybe, 64, 65. And it was a top of the line. I got an A in sewing. So my dad took me shopping and said, I'll buy you any machine you want, because I had been struggling with an old Singer that he converted to electric for my mom. And then my mom didn't sew. She didn't have the patience. And it was old. It had the spindle bobbin, and it got to the point where it wouldn't hold the tension right. My dad was very mechanical and made it work as best he could, and he knew I'd struggled with it, so he told me when I took sewing in school, if I got an A, he would buy me any machine I wanted. And he really, at the time, Singer came out with, I think that was when that slant needle first came out. And he really thought that's what I would want. But I went for the Kenmore. It just seemed, I'm thinking mechanical me. It was all metal, and it just seemed like a much sturdier machine. And it was one that had just come out where it did all the fancy stitches, but you had to put the cams in the top, and you could adjust the sizes and all that. And so I got that one, and I still have it. And but we took it out of the cabinet, and the cabinets are kind of, the hinges for the machines that you put on the cabinet, the hinges are standard. So we played musical chairs a little bit with a few of the cabinets. I was given I think it was a 1917 full-size Singer. A customer saw me sewing on the vintage machine, and she said it had been her mother's, and neither she nor her sister wanted it. So she just gave it to me because she said she could tell I loved my machines. And so Bob brought it home, and he serviced it, and we put it in one of the cabinets we had here. And I don't remember, I think when Donald and Laura got married, I gave her my little Janome I'd bought for traveling. And then it was kind of a lightweight machine, so she started making the memory bears and needed something a little more heavy duty, so I gave her the vintage machine, and oh my goodness, did she put that sucker to work. And it was a good machine. So sometimes I'll do that. I'll exchange a machine in a cabinet with another one. is I have a, when the featherweights came out, people thought, oh, I could put, that's so convenient, to put it in a case that you could carry, make it portable. Not realizing how heavy some of those machines are. The one we gave Laura, I could barely carry. It came in a case like that, so we took it out and put it in the cabinet where it originally had been. And those suckers are heavy. And my aunt gave me one that she got from a friend of hers, and it is probably the prettiest machine I have of all of them. But it was aftermarket, put in a case to make it portable. And I'm looking for, I want a really nice cabinet for that one. And I have several treadles that are in gorgeous cabinets. But they're all fun to sew on. And this is going to be the last. We'll put this block together just to show you again how to do the set-in seams, to see how simple they are, not to fear them. The first Lone Star that I designed, I was so shy of doing set-in seams that I designed it with triangles on both sides of the star point, so that when you sewed everything together, everything was straight line, no set-in seams or anything. And then I designed another Lone Star that was a little smaller, and I thought, I'm going to try set-in seams. It was so simple. Make sure I have this going the right way. It was so simple. I thought, oh my goodness, had I known. It just clicked. There's just something about doing it on the foundations. Well, you are joining bias edges. And I'm sure that was that is part of why people don't like doing them, because it's so easy to stretch the fabrics that then you don't get a good flat intersection. But with the foundations, it keeps it from stretching, and it's marked, clearly marked where to sew. And before I sew them together, I always like to make sure that I have everything in the right orientation. So there's the green one. So I'll take these two, put them right sides together so I know where to sew. This is the seam I'm going to sew. So we'll put edges even, put a pin in here at the top where the two lines come together, and it comes, I've got it coming out at the same place on the other block. Come up here to the point and do the same thing, put a pin in the point. See, these are the edges I don't bother to cut off. I got it right there. Okay. Remember, you don't want to, you want to start your stitching where the line is. You do not run your stitching out past this point. Right there. Traveling foot pedal. And do 1, 2. Okay. Back stitch. So you can see my stitching starts right there at that point, and it ends right there at that point. So we'll open that up. Let me grab the third one. Put my pin through. We'll come out here to this point and make sure, ouch, off a little bit there. Perfect. Keep that nice and flat. Okay, and remember, you're pulling, everything is pulled away. This piece out here is pulled away, this seam allowance, and the seam allowance back here, all, you don't want to stitch those down. And I like to put my presser foot down and put my needle, manually put my needle down right where you see your pin going into that point. That way you know you got it just right. And keep those edges together. Stitch down the line. threads. Okay, so this is the piece I'm adding. I'm going to spin it around, rotate it around like that, and pull that out. This is the one it's already sewn to. So the corners of my two pieces I'm joining now, they match perfectly. So I'm going to put a pin right there at the end of my stitching. Right there. And put it through to the point right like that. Perfect. Yep. Okay. And you want to make sure you've got this piece pulled out to the left and the seam allowances, both front and back, pulled to the left. And we'll come out here and we'll match that point with the point on the back. I must be sticking my pin in at a bit of an angle today. Here we go. Okay, now we're going to stitch down this line. You want to put it in there, put the presser foot down, and I use the push button for needle down. Make sure I get my needle down right where the pin is going into that point. Perfect. One more stitch, back stitch. No pins, but I do want to cut my threads, and I'm not even going to hide it to check it first. There we have a perfect set-in seam. See how easy that is. And then I press them so that as I turn it, I press the seam away from me. Turn it one more time. And then that center just pops open. And then I turn it over and give it a really good pressing on the front side. We just had a little mini tornado come through here. Never heard that before. So there we have it. It's going to go like this. And this is when I do trim those little dog ears off. And okay, there we are. Definitely got a three-dimensional look there. I have 2 blocks left to do. I am not going to bore you guys with such repetitious work. But I hope you learned something here and want to give this one a try. It's called Empty Blocks. It comes in 2 sizes. These are the 6-inch blocks. And this is the 4-inch blocks. And the 4-inch block one is going to be kitted the same. I don't have the kits on the website yet. They'll got to give me this weekend to get caught up here. The small one, I'm pretty sure I have enough of the fabrics to make a decent number of kits. If you want to do that. And it's all on the website. And there's our floating blocks that we did, I think, the week before last. That one's available. And I'm going to keep working on this one so I can show you the finished thing on Tuesday. Remember, I will not have a show on Saturday. I want everybody to celebrate the 4th of July safely, happily. And hope you're sewing something really fun. Don't forget to join our chat room on Facebook and share what you're doing. You can ask any questions. Send us a message if you want to see a particular pattern done, one you want to work on or are working on. If you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. And I think that covers most all of it. Remember, I do Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday shows from noon to 2 Pacific time. Laura does shows Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 to noon Eastern time. So I hope you can join one or the other or both of us. And until next time, hi, Sandy. That's okay. We just kind of covered doing the same thing, doing the blocks for the empty blocks pattern, and did a lot of practice of inset seams for you. So if you've got to do them on a project, you can see how easy it is. We're going to take off. Going to be 5 days. Wow. Hopefully I'll get a lot done. Anyway, I hope you all have a very safe and happy 4th of July. And we'll see you on Tuesday at noon here on the West Coast. Take care, everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.